In 1931, New Zealand revolutionized menswear with a bang. Pants that made their own dramatic exits. Imagine a dairy farmer's quiet cottage on a damp afternoon. Suddenly, boom! The whole house shakes. Richard Buckley, a farmer turned fashion victim, is stunned. The culprit? His trousers, peacefully drying by the fire, have just exploded into a fireball. Buckley hurled the smoldering pants out the door when they kept the show going with a series of minor detonations. For a brief, glorious moment, New Zealand invented clothing best described by its sound effects. And, astonishingly, this was no one-off disaster. It marked the beginning of the nation's infamous exploding trousers epidemic. What follows is a tale that sounds absurd, like folklore or slapstick comedy, trousers bursting into flame left and right. Yet it's entirely true. In this video we'll explore what happened and why work pants turned into ticking time bombs. To do so, we'll meet the farmers who lived through this bizarre episode, from near misses to tragic losses, and unpack the wider story behind the madness. Along the way, we'll visit 1930s New Zealand agriculture, setting the stage for the coming crisis. An invasive weed was taking over pastures. A miracle chemical solution was promising salvation, and social context made risky technology seem worth the danger. After all, since then humanity has never done anything so reckless. So buckle up, there will be more of those. This is the tale of Farmer Buckley's exploding trousers. In 1931, peace in New Zealand's countryside vanished. Men's trousers began detonating. Some blew on the clothesline, others by the fire, and a few combusted mid-wear. It appeared random, which means we weren't yet paying attention. Picture it. You, tea in your hand, and kaboom! Your pants file for independence. At first, a few mishaps were whispered around on lonely rural roads, but soon whispers became headlines. The fires were the same, just the nouns wore fancier pants. Epidemic was a big word, but soon it fit nicely. Some journalists label it an epidemic of exploding trousers. Every legend needs a pilot episode. Buckley's pants provided one. Is the story from the very beginning. Buckley's pride took a singe, but not his skin. Thankfully, the pants had gone solo before detonation. Had he been wearing them, this legendary mishap might have ended as a front-page tragedy. Similar reports soon came from farms across the country. One farmer's wife was shocked when her whole line of fresh laundry became a fuse, decorated with lace. Numerous farmers and farmhands discovered that smoking could be hazardous to their health. Sparks from pipes and cigarettes ignited their clothes. One unlucky rancher noticed the seat of his pants beginning to smolder as he rode his horse. It gave rise to the term hot seats. It didn't. But as much as these scenes sound like a cartoon come to life, farmers dancing around trying to extinguish flaming trousers, there was a very real and tragic side to this epidemic. Not everyone got off as lightly as Buckley. There were injuries, burns, and even a few fatalities. Perhaps the saddest case involved a farm worker who came home after a long day's work and went to check on his sleeping baby. In the dark cottage, with no electric light, the father struck a match to see his child's face. In that instant, his clothes, permeated with the new Weedkiller, ignited in a flash of fire. He stumbled outside, burning. Neighbors rushed to help, but his burns were too severe. He died shortly after from his injuries. A few others met similar fates after their pants or shirts caught fire, turning a farming chore into horror. What had begun as an absurd curiosity was now a matter of life and death. By the early 1930s, spontaneous sartorial combustion was often reported, making the New Zealand's rural communities anxious and bewildered. Farmers already struggled through the depression. Now they had to worry about exploding pants. It sounded insane. Fortunately, the mystery didn't last long. investigators connected the dots, and the dots were smoking. The Javiera Star, investigating Mr. Buckley's strange misfortune, declared that the action of sodium chlorate is considered responsible for the catastrophe. In plain terms, it wasn't sorcery, just oxygen's enthusiastic friend. All the unlucky trousers belonged to farmers who had been using the same new chemical to kill an aggressive weed in their pastures. The weed was Ragwort, and the chemical was sodium chlorate. Together, they formed an explosive combination. To understand the theory behind the bang, we must meet the weed, which is quite nice looking and poisonous. Our story's villain is a yellow flowering pest called Ragwort. Ragwort may look innocuous, but so do clowns. And just like clowns, there is always murderous intent behind it. Ask the New Zealand farmers. In the 1920s and 30s, it was a nightmare. This invasive weed was brought from Europe decades earlier by accident, which is history's favorite shipping method. By the 1920s, Ragwort was rampant, especially in the North Island's wet pasturelands. It overran fields with its cherry yellow blossoms and caused serious trouble. Why did farmers hate Ragwort? First, it's poisonous, and as it spreads, the livestock buffet contains mainly nothing. Ragwort has potent alkaloid toxins that attack the livers of livestock. Cattle and horses instinctively avoid it, just like humans do with a vegan diet. However, as Ragwort takes over pastures, nutritious grasses and clover disappear. Animals have little else to graze on and eventually eat the weed, just like humans do with soy. Cows and horses that graze Ragwort can sicken and die of liver failure. Sheep have a slightly higher tolerance and were sometimes used to control Ragwort by grazing. They can manage the weed with less ill effect. But sheep alone couldn't solve the problem, especially on small, intensively grazed dairy farms that couldn't readily convert to sheep, as it would make cows sad. The Ragwort invasion struck at the worst possible time for New Zealand's farmers. The early 20th century saw a huge shift from sheep farming to dairying. This was made possible by new technology, such as refrigerated shipping to Britain, motorized cream collection and mechanical cream separation. The national dairy herd more than doubled between 1899 and 1919, then doubled again in the following 2 decades. Small owner-operated dairy farms sprang up on land that was once marginal and forested. But unlike large sheep stations, it's hard to rely on sheep when your brand is not sheep. By the late 1920s, high rainfall districts like Taranaki and frontier parts of North Island were overwhelmed by Ragwort. Desperate farmers tried to grab in it by hand, but rough, stump-strewn land made cultivation impractical. Burning the wheat, on the other hand, risked destroying things they actually liked, such as fences and fillings. Labor costs were high. There were plenty of unemployed men, but enthusiasm for work was low. So the weeds were high. Public opinion increasingly frowned on wives doing heavy farm work, and the children were in school rather than in paddocks with men. Meaning, no more plowing fields using your wife and kids. You have to use horses from now on. In short, Ragwort was winning just by showing up. Farmers feared that if they couldn't get this weed under control, their pastures would become poison gardens and their dairy operations would fail. They needed a new weapon, something that didn't require a lot of muscle or manpower. New Zealand asked for a miracle and got fireworks. Enter sodium chlorate. In 1930, New Zealand's Department of Agriculture began promoting sodium chlorate as the long-awaited solution to the Ragwort plague. Government scientist W. Deem wrote that properly applied chlorates would completely destroy all the Ragwort plants and stand out far above any other sprays. Sodium chlorate seemed to promote Ragwort control without the high financial and personal cost of finding additional labor. And just like that, sodium chlorate became the next cool thing everyone wants to have. So farmers signed up in droves. Before 1930, imports of sodium chlorate were practically non-existent. Within a year, hundreds of tons were arriving, and by the 1937, about 1,000 tons were being imported annually. And that's the power of viral marketing. However, there was a catch, a literally explosive catch. Sodium chlorate is a strong oxidizer, long familiar to quarrymen and others as an explosive ingredient. It is extremely volatile, like a toddler with a diarrhea. It tends to be dangerous when mixed with organics such as clothing. Also people. In the early 1930s, sprayers were primitive and leaky. Few pastoral farmers have protective clothing, as working with explosives wasn't on their list of priorities. Chloride was also difficult to wash out once it had soaked into garments, turning them into IEDs, improvised explosive dungarees. It only took a small ignition, even just a shock or knock, to set chlorate-impregnated fabric violently alight, just like with your brain on a hangover. It's worth noting that sodium chlorate's dangerous reputation wasn't entirely unknown. Some settlers even used it to shatter tree stumps. In 1933, a quarryman lost 2 fingers while using chlorate as an explosive. Using it as a herbicide was a logical conclusion. Still, the 1930s emphasis was on effectiveness, not hazard. This was an era when authorities also recommended arsenic washes for blackberries, and many farmers accepted that the accidents were the price they paid to keep their farms going. Newspapers initially treated the reports with astonishment and wry humor. Detonating Dungarees and blazing breachers made irresistible headlines. But the Havera Star quickly found a smoking pile of sodium chlorate. Most farmers didn't demand a ban. The choice was weeds or kaboom pants, and they went with some kaboom. As historian James Watson puts it, many would have been annoyed if the government had interfered. Without chlorate, many would have been forced off the land, and the accidents were the price they paid to keep their farms in production. Chlorate took New Zealand hostage. Awareness spread, and practical precautions followed. Don't smoke while spraying, keep contaminated clothes away from flames, and change before coming indoors. Never has basic hygiene felt so tactical. Within the agricultural community, debate arose about the long-term value of sodium chlorate. In 1937, voices began to spread about the prospect of using explosives as a long-term solutions for weeds, prompting internal discussions in the Department of Agriculture and causing some farmers to shun it. As word of doubt spread, farmers began looking for less combustible alternatives, and chlorate's shine faded by the late 1930s. The saga of exploding trousers eventually fizzled out. Ragwort, however, did not. Post-war herbicides arrived, and later New Zealand's turned to biological control. In the early 1980s, the Ragwort flea beetle was introduced. Those tiny chompers were successful at least in a part of the country. In wetter regions, scientists began releasing 2 European moths in 2006, whose larvae attack ragwort's roots and crown. Long after the events, the story itself won a wink from the world of science humor. Watson's paper regarding the story of exploding trousers was judged the funniest research paper in the science that year. Today, exploding trousers live on as a cautionary folklore. Behind the laughs lies a serious lesson about the unintended consequences of tech adoption. Government experts of the day prioritized efficiency over the hazard in desperate time, and farmers accepted risk because cows don't eat good intentions. Appreciate those people who are risking their lives next time you eat a burger. If you find this video worth your time, please subscribe to discover other unknown stories. Give it a thumbs up, think of it as a patting me on the head. Comment boom if you watched to the end, or minor detonations if you're posh. Let me know if there's another story you'd like me to create a video about in the future. Check out t-shirts inspired by my videos to support the channel. For more content, watch the previous video about the headless chicken who was still bawling 18 months after decapitation. Sincerely, thank you for watching, and see you in the next one. Farmers and farmhands. Numerous farmers and farmhands. Numerous farmers and farmhands. Numerous farmers and numerous farmers and farmhands discovered that smoking could be dangerous for the health.